damage per hit.
Yeah.
Not even with weapon throws.
But this makes Glass Cannon a little bit more viable. Can we please nerf rivals? I wish. Yeah, so your base health at max level will go from 1,000 to 1,300. It's a pretty big increase. Instead of being comfortable at like 600 defense, you'll be comfortable at like 300 now. No, we're not buffing glass cannons that do 400 damage per hit. That's where this one comes in. We're buffing glass cannons that don't stack damage modifiers and instead just stack power. 400 damage per hit comes from different damage modifiers, not from power itself.
Oh, I should actually read the channel, shouldn't I? Hold on.
Could this probably mess up balancing in the future? No, this is... So right now, you get your power to defense ratio at lower levels is very, very skewed towards power, right? Where you have 100 defense and 20 power, right? At higher levels, it evens out a little bit more, but this will sort of help it even out a little faster towards what armor actually gives you. All right, and since we were on the topic of the damage stacking thing, this is a change to damage stacking towards damage modifiers, such as the size slider, shapes, power aura, power potions, anything that just multiplies the damage that you do. This is an alteration to that. So instead of just multiplying, all of these modifiers will be added together and then be put as a multiplier. So for example, if you have a 20% damage boost and another 20% damage boost, instead of it being 1.2 times 1.2, it's now 1 plus 0.2 plus 0.2. So you only end up with a 0.4 damage modifier. So you only end up with a 1.4 times damage boost instead of 1.44, which is what it was previously. We'll get to some of those later after we finish with this card. Right, this is specifically for like if you're stacking like power aura, damage shape, alt art, and a power potion, you end up with like a 2.5 times damage multiplier. This will make it like 1.8 instead. So it really, really nerfs like a ton of damage stacking. But like for like an average player, it's not going to be a huge change. It's just for like preventing people from getting one shot.
Yeah, like the more damage modifiers you have currently, the scaling is insane, but with the additive it'll be significantly more balanced. Like the difference between like maybe 2 multipliers right now and then 2 additives isn't a lot, but when you end up with like 4, the difference is a lot.
Right.
It'll end up being like 0.3 almost, for depending on which damage modifiers you can have. Substat auras?
This is just for damage. The substat ones will still be multipliers.
They will still, yeah. Yeah, I think,
I do actually have, Roar. I have, something later that we're going to be talking about with, the tier scaling of stuff.
You know, Rev does have a point. We might want to make all...
We'll probably get to that at some point.
Instead of multiplicative, because I know what he's talking about. With like a 300 size sailor with a destruction aura, I think you can hit like a 500 size sailor with destruction aura. You can hit the entirety of the main Elysium Arena.
Yeah.
Which is
with start and full charge, and you're high in the air and whatever else. Yeah,
exactly. It's pretty crazy. If that was also additive,
we did do some additive size stuff before, and it didn't work out super well because of the same reason that the additive damage stuff didn't work out super well. This takes into account what we forgot to take into account before, where damage modifiers that are below 1 to X will end up actually being still multipliers instead of being additive. It's only damage bonuses that get turned to additive from this. Isn't Ultimate Art getting a nerf? Yeah, Ultimate Art Slam Smash is getting a nerf, I believe. Weapon self AoE is nerfed when? We'll probably discuss that later. Okay. We're also reducing the potency of power aura from 22% to 15%, because that's generally just the best one right now. It's such a huge damage bonus compared to like the speed bonus and the size bonus, unless you're just multiplying those, right? Like for example, if you have a high attack speed build and you're using speed aura, it buffs your attack speed a ton, versus if you're using like a power thing. No, not every other aura is 15%. Other auras, I think the size aura is like 30%, and the speed aura is like 40%.
Yeah, Rev. I like speed aura is pretty insane right now.
Yeah.
Maybe something should be done about. Something should probably be done about that in the future.
Destruction aura is 15%. Okay.
Oh.
Speed aura is not 15. Speed aura is way higher.
Yeah, speed is at least 30%. There's no way it's anything lower than that. I guess it's.
And also, we're changing it to not be modified based on the infinity, because the infinity is already a multiplier. You don't need to have a multiplier, multiply a multiplier, then multiply again. Like, that just doesn't make any sense.
No, it does not. Destruction aura is 15% additive.
Okay. Since Bror brought this up, I'm going to open up this sheet. I don't know if this sheet has been published yet, but Meta said that I can look at it, I think, because it's on the document already. It's not on the document, sorry, on the Trello already. This sheet, I don't know if this one's been published. And Meta might yell at me for this because I think he thought I was talking about the Trello itself, not this one. I don't know if this one's been published yet. But this one has a lot of the tier scaling of all the skills, and it's the exact numbers that are in Test Universe right now. This one's not the right now ones. These ones are the ones after we standardize them. We also have the normal ones, the ones that are currently what we have in main game. So a lot of these really show how insane some of the scaling was, right? For example, if you look at Pulsar, okay, Pulsar at base goes from like 37 size to 151 size, and comparing that to like Explosion at tier 1, which goes from 27 to 48 size at max.
Yeah,
that's a huge
times increase,
right?
It is insane.
Same with like Javelin, for instance.
Let's not drop off tiers.
Where it starts at 12% and then goes all the way up to 48%. Right? So Javelin would start off smaller than Explosion, and then by the time you're max level, it is the same size as a self-explosion. That's not okay, right? So a lot of these end up being standardized to where they are a decent size, right? So at the start, your Javelin is going to be a little bit smaller than your Explosion, purely because it is a projectile as well. But Tier 1 Javelin does get buffed from this, and then also at higher level, it doesn't end up being quite as big as Self-Explosion, even after it goes through this buff. Pulsar gets nerfed a ton at higher level, but it gets back the same size that it had originally at 55. Original Pulsar on release had 55 size after whatever size nerfs it got, but when it got its stat requirement changed and bumped up, it no longer had 55 size. Instead, it had 30, so it got that literally like cut in half. This should put it back into a decent space where it was previously, where all of our other nerfs were targeted. You'll also notice that it has a lower per tier scaling, simply because it starts off at a higher size, and if you were to give it the same tier scaling as everything else, by the time you get to max level, it will be bigger than everything else, which is not really where we want it. Is there any specific skills in this that people want to look at? Any specific skills that you want to see in this? Uppercut. Uppercut. We'll go to uppercut. Strike techniques. Uppercut right now is...
Oh, is that the This is a main game, right? Not standardized.
Yeah, this is the main game one. Standardized is the other one. So Uppercut right now has a base size of 26 and a tier scaling of 6, which means that when you unlock it at tier 1, 32 size. Okay, and then every other tier after that, you'd get an extra 6 size up until 68. Which this is fairly large, right? Uppercut, when you unlock it, is a decent size for the skill that it is, right? It's about the same size as Pulsar is when you unlock it, but it doesn't have quite as high scaling as Pulsar does, and it doesn't really need that because it's more of like an aggressive tool versus a zoning damage over time type of tool. You use it and it just would work if it does work.
Some
Right.
people are saying they want to look at Snare as well.
We'll look at Snare in a bit. After the changes, it gets a little bit lower size, but it has higher or a lower scaling, sorry, as well as a little bit higher base size. Not really by much. I don't like these numbers. I don't know why these numbers are so odd. Ask Meta. Someone has to look at this.
It's likely from just
But
percentage change, which kind of, and there's no like thing to determine the float.
yeah, I'm not sure why the base size is so odd.
Yeah,
It's probably something that just a calculator.
Yeah, just
it's multiplied by 1.33. This is 15%.
That can probably be fixed.
I don't know. Meta, do something about this. This one's kind of ugly. This one's kind of ugly. It's also a little bit of an unnecessary nerf, considering that Uppercut's not in a great spot right now. I mean, Iron Leg Uppercut's kind of massive. I don't know if Uppercut needs to be as massive as it is right now, but until it works, I don't know if it needs that nerf. People wanted to look at Snare. We'll go grab Snare again. Snare, it doesn't scale. I don't know why it's like this in this dock, but here it also just has nothing. Meta, is this just because you aren't able to measure Snare in Test Universe because it doesn't give you a measurement when you use it? I assume so, because that's what you said for a lot of the other ones where it just didn't give you a measurement, like Surge, for example. It doesn't have an AoE visualizer. Okay. Snare we can't really see much of. Anything that doesn't have a normal hitbox, like a normal sphere hitbox, you can't really see much of. So Surge, Sparrow Thrust, Snare for some reason. Most grabs also wouldn't have this. Just a lot of things don't have this. Yes, Snare does scale with tiers. Yeah.
It also scales with size affinity.
Yep. It doesn't? I'm pretty sure it does. I've seen Mage Snare versus Warlock Snare. Only its visuals, maybe. That's kind of ugly, but that's whatever.
That is bad. Makes sense though.
Get that VTEX guy to add it for Snare so that you can actually measure.
Actually, that might not be best because if Rushdown scales with tier.
No, I mean, get him to add in the visualizer so you can actually see.
Okay, yeah.
It scales.
You know, I mean, like if Rushdown scales with tiers and grabs are also the way grabs scale with size, like the kind of easier they are to hit. Like with heavy grabs, you can almost with like max size and a heavy grab, you can hit somebody behind you because of just how they work. So that might be a little bit unfair.
I saw someone talk about Smash. We can go look at Smash again. I do want to look at some of the weapon skills, though.
Actually, yeah.
Look at the weapon skills first.
I honestly think that Slam Smash should not be smaller than Uppercut.
So here is an example where you just can't get any data on it. Sparrow Thrust, it's a different hitbox. These also, different hitboxes. All grabs. They don't scale with size like that. Devastate I thought was interesting because it starts off bigger than Explosion, but then becomes smaller than Explosion, which is kind of funny. And you can also see that your Mirrored River and your specifically Mirrored River is literally basically the same size. Yeah, I'm looking at the standardized one. Mirrored River becomes the same size as Devastate, which is a little funny to me. I don't know if it needs to be that big.
I think one thing.
If we look at what it is right now, it's pretty much the same thing. Devastate's smaller than Self-Explosion. You think it's from before the increase from falling. That does make a little bit of sense, yeah. It should also be the same with Slam Smash too, then. Currently, Mirrored River is smaller. It will get like a decent sized buff from this in terms of the just size of it. And I think Fury of the Sea is an important one here. Fury of the Sea right now has a relatively low tier scaling and a very high base size, which means that it doesn't actually get super high size at max. This, we just increased the base size a little bit and then reduced the tier scaling by a decent margin. So it'll be a little bit bigger after this, because I know right now it's not huge unless you stack a bunch of size. Or charge it or whatever else. Right now, this will probably be fine. It's not a huge buff to the size. It's just to make it a little bit more consistent. Late game PvP, higher levels. Right now, with what's currently in main game, late game PvP would have a lot of just really, really fat moves. After the standardization, a lot of stuff won't really be getting bigger than Pulsar.
I'm probably just gonna answer questions.
For example, this Crushing Judgment, absolutely massive at higher tier. After the change, it gets cut down quite a bit at higher tier. Storm of Arrows actually gets a pretty sizable buff from this too. A higher base size and a higher max size.
But yeah, so about Snare being easier to land than other like certain weapon grabs in Rushdown, it's fine that it lands easier based on like just if they're not blocking it in the radius, because the trade-off of missing it is significantly more punishing than every single other grab in the game, where they don't leave you just like standing there for like 3 seconds to just like get hit by like 5 moves.
Except for Brutal Rush.
Yeah, like Brutal Rush is probably the least punishable, kind of. I don't know.
No, Brutal Rush, you're sitting there. You're a sitting duck if you miss it.
Yeah, it kind of has the same thing as Snare, but where it's like easily punishable to a degree, but when it does connect, it's very good, which is fine given the trade-off that it has, where it leaves you very vulnerable versus every other grab in the game.
I don't believe that Snare's end lag scales with speed affinity. I'm pretty sure it's just a startup.
It is just a startup, actually. The end lag is the same because the frame data for all of them are.
All right.
For all the end lag is the same, I believe.
Are there any other skills that you want to see on this Sparrow Thrust? Sparrow Thrust nerfs are they're separate from this, but I guess we could look at Sparrow Thrust here too. Sparrow Thrust, where is this?
Ooh, Whirlwind, actually.
Here.
That's a good one.
Yeah, this doesn't have any data on the size, because you just can't scale the size here. Flying
Whirlwind
Phoenix?
Pretty okay. Oh, Flying Phoenix gets, like, big, I think.
I guess it is missing Flying Phoenix.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Meta, add Flying Phoenix.
I can say from experience, Flying Phoenix does seem to get pretty big with its own scaling. It gets, like, actually very big.
Cannon Fist M1 scale with tiers. I don't know if Cannon Fist M1s do. I do know that M1s in general do. Primal Swipe. Primal Swipe here.
I would imagine
this is the post-standardized one.
I would imagine that cheapest tiers would just
pre-standardize.
It
ends up with a much lower base size, I think. Yeah, and lower scaling as well. So it'll end up like way bigger after this change, just in general. I don't think Primal Swipe is very massive, but this will help it a lot in terms of consistency at close range.
I would imagine Cannon Fist M1's tier scaling would just be the distance that they're going and how fast the cannonball crosses said distance.
Or like an impact AoE too.
Probably.
You can also see that where is it? Any of the throw attacks actually do have scaling on them. And they do here as well. They're just very small to start with and end up being very small at the end. All right.
Oh,
Any other ones that we want to look at? Beast Instinct?
Beast Instinct.
This is a standardized one. So right now, Beast Instinct starts off at 18, goes up by 3.6. So at tier 1, you end up with 21.6. At max tier, you end up with 43.2. After the changes, it'll start off at 25, which is a pretty big increase. Go up by 2.7, which is a smaller increase per tier. But you end up with a larger tier 1 size and a pretty similar tier 7 size.
Pretty balanced.
Will Claws get Soaring Eagle as a 4th move? Probably not. The Twitter post with the video said that it was specifically for dual swords. Where can I look at Sparrow Thrust Nurse? Those are on the balance Trello. Where would it be? Numerical ability adjustments? Nope. I know that there's a fix for it that's going through, so. Did Shadow get a buff? No. Damage and size for bird shape magic blast. That's just what the shape says it does. If the shape says it increases size, it increases size. Numerical adjustments under in progress. Okay. So it's already been done.
Oh, has it been removed? It might be an archive.
It's here.
Okay.
Clash box duration nerf, and then the cone hitbox changes. And if I go down to here, you can see it's already been done. So Clash hitbox got nerfed. Range length did get increased a little bit, but then the radius also got decreased. And there's also a fix that needs to be done to it still offsetting with size. Why does Rising Tide have the same damage as Shockwave Smash, but less startup and less end lag? It's Rising Tide. I mean, Shockwave Smash is a little easier to hit. It's just bigger and it's in front of you. And I'm pretty sure it does less. It's just the same power affinity. Yeah, that's a weapon jank thing. That's a weapon jank thing versus.
Also, Rising Tide has like the 3rd lowest weapon base damage in the game. If I'm not.
Shockwave Smash is really easy to hit. I
don't
know why you're saying it's not easier to hit.
It's some of the craziest in the game, especially if you're using like a fast fighting style and using like 3-hit smash. Its damage potential is insane. Like on boxing and thermo, with and then if you add the DOT to it as well, you end up with a very high damage. For boxing less because no DOT, but it might make up for it with the impact.
All right. Do we have any other cards that we want to go over here?
Ooh, might be one.
Thermo Heat rework. Which?
Is this the one where there's going to be a little bit of a change to preheating again?
Yep. So if preheating must stay in the game, it should be least effective as possible. Overall heat capacity and probably fixing the drain issues to make preheat provide much of a less benefit compared to earning and sustaining the heat. So basically, you're increasing the heat gain per spell and per skill much higher. And also increasing the heat drain by a lot as well. This will make it so that you have to play a little bit more aggressive with thermo in order to actually maintain your heat.
As one should.
As well as actually fixing the fact that heat drains on everything. Like any sort of like long duration skill, it'll just start draining.
So it's going to have an actual pause that is going to be basically tied to what the frame data says from the move.
Not just that, but weapons don't pause it at all right now. Any sort of grab does not pause it, including rushdown. So you end up with just not being able to use those moves because they will drain your heat too fast. I was playing Thermolord right now in main game. Doing it any sort of PvE with it without pre-charging was like completely unusable because not only was it small, but it also did low damage because you couldn't. You just couldn't. You couldn't. You don't deal good damage unless you have the DOT. And the DOT only comes at higher heat. And even after that, you end up with like mediocre damage. Yeah, basically it makes Thermo's playstyle more defined. Yeah. Agility rework. One problem I noticed with agility rework is that let's say you're chasing somebody. Say you're trying to chase somebody and trying to exhaust him, but what if that somebody had friend to chase me when I'm chasing that somebody? Yeah, I discussed this, and I think that it should personally be more of a buff instead of a nerf, because like buff as in like you should be buffing the person who's chasing instead of nerfing the person who's running. Sort of like encourage you to move towards someone instead of discouraging you to move away. Because in that specific instance, the person who is, if you have like a stack of two people chasing, you end up with two people getting nerfed instead of two people getting buffed chasing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And even in like other instances other than that, I feel like you should be getting like an increased movement speed from chasing after someone instead of a decreased movement speed from running away.
Maybe we could do that instead. You just increase in speed if you're chasing somebody.
I suggested that like 3 different times, and every time I suggested that, Pillay said no, because that will make PvP toxic or something like that. Which is like, I don't know.
Like, dude, it already is.
I feel like this will be a little bit more toxic than that, because I feel like being slowed feels worse than having the other person be faster than you.
Yeah, like I'm personally not the biggest fan of the agility rework, but I understand it and why it needs to happen, as well as knowing that it is so much better of a exhaustion mechanic than the one we had in like I think it was 1.12 or 1.11, where you would dash 3 times and then you would lose I think 90% of your dash distance, if I'm not mistaken. So the one we have it was like almost.
It was way less than 90%. It just feels awful.
It felt so bad, and this is just such a
because again, lowering your speed feels terrible, right? For example, if this was say like a so this is a increasing your or decreasing your speed by 10%, I think. If you were to instead increase the other person's speed by 15% or even just 10% by itself, it would be less of a difference in speed, because a decrease of 10% is lower than an increase of 10%. Is a higher, of a change than an increase in 10%. But even then, like it just feels bad to be slowed down versus feeling good to be chasing after someone, right? I don't know. I personally think that it should just be an increase in speed if you're going towards someone instead of a decrease in speed if you're running away. That's just me. Basically, this will make a cone behind you, and if there's someone behind you, it'll slow you down. That's it. I think it should instead be a cone in front of you, and if there's someone in front of you, it speeds you up. It doesn't it doesn't put a cone directly behind you. It puts a cone in this direction opposite to where you're dashing. If it sped you up, it would be some chase scene and wouldn't really work too much. Why? 50 miles per hour, it wouldn't be that huge of a speed increase. It would be just enough so that you'd be able to catch up to him. Like, think about it this way, right? If you're going even a little bit faster than someone, you can catch up to them at some point. Right? Like, this is not going to make it so that you don't have to run agility, because you'll still have to run agility if someone else is running agility in terms of being able to catch up to them. That's just how it's going to work. As long as agility does increase dodge distance, which I think that we're just changing it to not. At some point. Oh, and this is nice too. Yeah, but that would be the case even with it decreasing their speed. It would still be awful to try to catch them, because they will still be faster than you. It's more of a difference of, do you reduce their speed and make them feel bad, or do you increase your speed and make you feel good? Right. Any other things that we want to go over in this? Magic speed changes? This one? So this one is any NPC damage nerfs? No, not at the moment. Yeah, those were in this one, I believe. Where was I? Here. Additive damage may change. It may nerf NPC damage a little bit. It depends on what they're actually using. Anyways, this change is specifically to sort of condense a lot of the magic speed affinities, because they are way more varied than anything else, and it leaves little to no room for expansion, right? Because we do plan, there is a plans for obviously more magics later down the line, right? And unless those can be expanded upon in the current system, they're just not going to have very much room, right? So what this aims to do is sort of condense them so that they're a little bit less extreme, leave some room for higher level magics, lost magics, where they can sort of expand on this, and also sort of reduce the extremity on like imbues. For example, light imbue a little too fast, middle imbue a little too slow for it to be even useful. Outside of bugs with speed, and this sort of aims to mitigate that. As well as metal just can't use projectiles at this point, and light can only use projectiles. So we did do some changes to make light a little bit better with size, so that it can do stuff that so it can use some skills that are size oriented. Now we're doing some changes to make metal be able to use some skills, or lower speed stuff be able to use some skills that are a little bit more speed oriented, like beam or blast or javelin. Beam also gets affected by this, but yeah. Beam doesn't get affected as much by this as Metal Blast and Javelin, but it will get affected a little bit. Yeah, so all this does is it sort of like condenses a lot of them, so that they feel better to use. Weapon imbues in general should just be reworked. How do you want to rework them? You can't just say that they just need to be reworked. Change them to what? How do you change them? I mean, yeah, I could scroll down to more of this, but I'm more talking about Deku Knight in here saying that weapon imbues should just be reworked. Just change the multipliers. To what? What are you changing them to? Anyways, here, changing a little bit of the beam efficiency so that it doesn't get changed as much. Changing some of the explosion spell efficiency, snare spell efficiency. Specifically snare spell because snare on light is way too quick and will be even after this change. And then some changes to the magic imbues so that they don't get changed as much, but will still get changed some. Magic imbued fighting styles above 1.0 speed. I believe that they're already at 50% for below 1.0 speed. This is just changing it for above 1.0 speed to be a little bit better. I could be wrong about that. Someone correct me if I am, but I'm pretty sure that it's already at 50% for below 1.0. Magic imbued weapons are getting a small size buff because the size nerf last patch was. Yeah, and for below it's already 50%, right? Okay. Small size buff because the size nerf last patch was not necessary. Poison imbue getting a nerf, magma imbue getting a nerf, light imbue, wind imbue, plasma imbue getting a small buff because those are just not in terms of damage. Specifically, wind and plasma are not quite as good as they used to be. And light is also getting a pretty substantial nerf in terms of its magic speed itself, which will be reducing it. We already went over the fact that a lot of this is to make more room for lost magics, and keeping the light at high speed and then nerfing its damage turns it into something like a lost magic. Like, for example, I don't know if you have read up on what Flare does, but it is high size, high speed, really, really low damage, and a stackable DOT. It's like 0.65 damage or something like that.
I'm back.
Right. Any questions about this card? Any sort of issues with this? Take a look at some of the speed adjustments.
Could change it,
Any of these Anyone have an issue with? Me personally, I think Ice could use a damage nerf after the speed change, but that's just me.
It should probably be fine, but it could be considered. I agree.
Do we feel like Girth is in a good spot right now?
It's better spot than Metal as Imbue. But as a Magic, I don't know. As a Magic, it just doesn't have much of an identity other than being big and slow and hitting hard, which is like
Ice?
a lot
Just
of them.
metal beta version.
Earth.
Yeah.
Earth is just like,
Alright, I will be back.
it doesn't
in
have
like
much of an
in
identity.
a minute.
Will Ice Bleed Synergy get a nerf? It does nearly 45% of health to a 2.1k HP build. No, it does not. That's a lie. You're not doing 45% of someone's health if they have a 2.1k HP build. That's just not true. If you are, you're stacking a bunch of damage modifiers instead of just being the synergy. Like, the biggest damage that I've seen on a viable build from an Ice Imbue is like 450, which is not 45% of someone's HP if they have a 2000 HP build.
Okay, I'm back again. Ice Bleed Synergy nerf since it deals nearly 45% of health to 2.1k HP. That's arguable. That's only by stacking
Brian,
power.
it's just not dealing 45% of someone's HP if they have a 2k HP build.
Either.
That's just not true. It just doesn't do that.
No. The only way that's possible is if somebody's running Power Aura, Power Potion, Snowy Synergy, Bleed Synergy, and 200 Power. That's like the only way you're going to be doing almost like 900 on a single hit, and it has to be like full charged. Unless you're running like Metal against melting.
The only way you're doing that is by stacking a bunch of damage modifiers. You're not doing that just because of the Ice Bleed synergy.
I can speak from experience. The 25% synergy is not busted because the thing about that is either you're getting the same damage if they were bleeding or not. Like it's either you're getting the 25% over time or you're getting the 25% instantly. That's it. That's the only difference. But yeah, like Meta said, you have stuff like Acid on Melting Target, which is 10% to DOT.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then another fun one that people don't really think about is something like Plasma Thermo. Let's
Impact
say you're
damage
only
is
doing
more
like
damage changing than a DOT.
you only do like
it only works like that if you're in a damage trade, like a direct multi-hit damage trade. If you're not doing that, the DOT is better. Just straight up. Because specifically on Imbue, that 25% is being halved down to 12.5%, which is only 2.5% more than if it wasn't 25% synergy. Because it was 20% before. Like, you're not getting a bunch of extra damage. You're getting, like, maybe 15 more damage, dude. Like, the 25% synergy, it's so much worse than, like, 20% synergy on something that isn't a DOT. Because you lose out on that DOT damage. I don't know why this is even like a debate.
25% removal on like something without DOT versus a 20% removal on something with DOT. Like the 20% removal with DOT is so much stronger as well because you get the 20% boost in damage as well as the 20% boost in the DOT damage. Like it's a lot stronger than people think. Yeah, and you can refresh that stronger DOT. Like that was one of the things you could do with like poison is like use like alt art single like 40% blast with like a shitload of power and like synergy, and then just continue to stack that poison, and then you just basically win.
Okay. Anything else here that I think we should go over? What's this? This is the cloud changes.
Your ice stats are pretty okay right now.
Amethyst regeneration
Not the worst in the world, but they're all right.
Since mini rework. The clouds shouldn't stack like at all. What do you mean?
I think he means like overlapping clouds that
yeah, that's a bug.
Yeah, it's horrible, dude. I dashed through a cloud, like a stack of clouds, and took 400 damage one time because you get hit going in and out sometimes.
That's a bug.
I remember, I think I was fighting Raptor on one of his poison builds. Oh my god.
What's really crazy about clouds is specifically when Raptor starts talking about the impact damage on clouds, that only works like 20% of the time.
Yeah, but when it does a lot. It's like a free like 40 power, if not more.
Yeah, on poison, but you also don't get the DOT out of the cloud damage, so it's like
yeah.
It's not really 20 power. It's more like it's more like maybe like 10 extra power. Like you're because it only works 20% of the time, and it's also like on like a maybe mediocre impact damage magic. It's just impact damage. It's not like it has no DOT or anything like that. It's maybe like 10 extra power. Like it's not much.
Not all that, but it's still all right.
Wood not getting a speed affinity change like ice and explosion.
It has basically ice's stats with bleeding. It doesn't really need the buff.
Wood is busted.
Wood is just faster metal, genuinely.
People don't use it because when you're looking at the magic screen and you see wood next to something like magma, plasma, shadow, lightning, fire, you're not going to pick wood. Wood sounds stupid.
Mm-hmm. It's like people not picking sand, even though sand is actually not that bad of a magic.
Who picks metal? Because people look at because metal has something like to its name as just being like the biggest damage thing. The only thing wood has is just like it's good all around, and it's just better than other stuff. But it doesn't have like a cool thing that it can do. It's just really good. Right, like a lot of other things either look cool, sound cool, have a cool like unique stat to them. Wood is just busted, but it doesn't like have anything that makes you want to pick it over anything else. How does it have double DOT? Thermo DOT and wood DOT.
Doesn't the bleed get removed though?
No.
Here, no.
What? I thought no. Thermo clears bleed.
Yeah, but which happens first, the thermo clear or the bleed proc?
Oh, yeah, that's stupid.
So what ends up happening is you hit once, okay? You hit once, it procs the thermo DOT and the thermo synergies, then it procs the wood synergies and the wood DOT, and then you hit a second time, it procs the thermo synergies, then the thermo DOT, the thermo synergies clear the bleed, but then the wood instantly reapplies the bleed because the clear cooldown was completely removed, which it should be.
Yeah.
Right. It's just an issue with the fact that it has two synergies instead of one. It should really only have one synergy.
To explain this simpler to other people, think about it like using a bleed, like a DOT remove magic or a DOT remove gel.
It does get halved, yeah.
So the first hit will apply, second hit will remove, and then apply again, and you get the bonus, basically. Meta, didn't half DOT get removed?
No.
Seriously?
It's still in the game.
Okay, that's good, dude. Yeah, no. My plasma thermo still does like 50 DOT with a power aura or
Oh,
power.
right. Ryan, if you were asking about the dot itself being halved, it's not halved
Yeah.
anymore. It's just the synergies are halved.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I meant like the actual DOTs. That we might have to nerf that again because dual DOT builds like that are still so strong.
They're strong. I don't know. I think it's more of like a synergy thing with those. Because if you do like a dual DOT build that doesn't have synergy, it's not as good.
Yeah, I think maybe we should do like 75%, or maybe 75% if they synergize, the magic synergize or something like that.
I think you could literally just reduce DOT synergies. Like,
Agreed.
if they don't remove, just reduce them. Which I talked about this with Meta, where the value of having a DOT on someone is so good that you just don't need as strong synergies with it. I think we talked about this multiple months ago.
Yeah, like something like magma. If you get hit by magma, you just don't have regen anymore. Like for the entire fight, that's pretty much just unless you clear magma. Same with poison, pretty much. Since regen is standardized now, regardless of defense, if you get hit with like almost any hit of poison, you just don't have regen anymore, and it's just very strong.
Okay, on the topic of regen, actually.
Oh yeah, we should go to that.
So, one of the issues with regen right now is similar to the damage multipliers thing. When you have regen on regen on regen, it all gets multiplied to the point where you're regenning like between 50 and 100 HP per second, which is not okay because then you're just unkillable. Right?
At high invest, yeah.
That's just not okay, right? Like you can't die. No one's gonna out damage your healing if you're moving around, right? So what this change is aiming to do is make it so that any sort of regeneration is just flat additive regen. Okay, this will work with the regeneration stat as well, where instead of getting a percent increase to your regen based on your base regen, you now get just flat extra regen, which will work perfectly fine because the regen stat will also scale with level. As you get higher level, you get more regen stat, so that percent of extra regen will increase relative to your base HP. Same with like power on armors. It like as your base power increases, the power that you get from extra power on your armor also will increase, right? Not because the percentage is better, but because it's just a flat additive bonus. This turns regen into that. Same with defense too. So regen, power, and defense will all be completely additive after this change from armor.
And if I'm not wrong, for this, the regen would now function essentially linearly.
Would be linear as well, yeah.
That's good.
If V1 happens.
Yeah, if V1, yes.
If V2 happens, regen will still be a dead stat, full stop. You will only like put in maybe 2 gems worth of regen into your build, and then you are done with the regen because you're getting as much out of it as you basically possibly can. Because, like, unlike your other stats, adding more into it will not make it more efficient. Like, for example, adding more into speed and adding more into size makes it more efficient. Same with adding more into resistance. Regen doesn't do that. Regen is just a flat amount of regen. Adding more to it doesn't make it any more efficient. What about the chances of NPC parrying? I don't think that's being changed at all.
No, it's not. I think Vet actually explained why it works that way in Patreon chat, I believe. Something about it being a way to like level out the fairness of NPCs.
Yeah.
I don't know about it. Honestly,
Doge,
it's kind of bullshit that they can attack and like block or parry at the same
Doge,
time.
I don't think you should rework all DOTs to remove regen because a lot of magic, specifically like magics with the lower impact damage but higher DOT damage, will need to be completely revamped, and also it just makes them all way too similar. You could have one magic where its status effect just says you don't regen anymore. That would work fine, right?
That would be interesting.
But that would be a lost magic, right? You just make one lost magic that does that. You don't do that to all DOTs.
Come to think of it, that would be terrible as well as the magic.
Is
Genuinely.
it possible to out-regen water poisoning with regen alone? Kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
theoretically, the thing about water poisoning is it scales with your max HP, not your base HP. So if you have any defense at all, you die faster from water poisoning than someone without defense. I'm pretty sure. Because I've seen people do with higher HP die faster.
Yeah, there is a funny thing you can do though, because if you've ever been in Darkseid for a while and you had water poisoning for a while, you can notice that it actually reprocs itself because its duration does actually run out eventually.
Mm-hmm.
A funny little thing you can do is if you are running a really low HP like Warding 6 build, you get water poisoning, you can swap to like a 4k HP build and then out regen it for a while until it procs again. But you can use that to like get back to your ship faster and everything. Obviously, it's slight bug abusing. I don't exactly condone it, but
right.
Interesting little thing you can do.
You can also do, because your regen in combat doesn't change with HP. If you're in combat, you can use like a for example, if you're not in a party, you just get someone to smack you. Now you're in combat. You can use glass arcanium to lower the damage of the DOT.
That's true. Yeah. I think you and me actually talked about this before Arcanium got added. We were like, oh, well, what if we just run Glass Arcanium with a shitload of regen and recovery, and then you just literally never die from water poisoning?
Yep.
I think that would actually work. It'd be a lot easier to do with the linear scaling of regen with the Rework 1, which is something should probably be done to water poisoning for that, honestly. Maybe it should increase depending on your regen. Just so to prevent that. Sure, it's funny, but it also you can end up with like people who are like macro fishing in like Darksea, which is not good.
People already macro fishing in Darksea because you don't get water poisoning until Insanity 2, I think.
Yeah, but I think you can only catch massive fish in like I1. Can you?
Yeah, but you don't get water
poisoning
poisoning as often in lower Insanities.
No, but you can still get it.
I haven't gotten it in Insanity 1 like ever. I only get it in Insanity 2.
I believe it. It's kind of funny how it works sometimes.
And I've seen people who just honestly kind of use the holes in the side of the islands that are somewhat close to water. They fish out of there and they never get water poisoning because they're always over something.
Oh, yeah, that's
yeah. I was
too,
gonna say that's a thing too. Unfortunately, nothing can really be done for that though. But it is what it is. I remember I pitched an idea a long time ago.
This is not going to happen. I don't know why we
catch sea monsters. I thought that shit would be hilarious. Ultimate anti-macro.
Already vetoed by VTEX.
Yeah.
We might just want to remove this tab or like put it on like a vetoed tab specifically, because like if VTEX looks at this and he sees it, he might just like think that there's more stuff on this Trello than there actually is, because he's just not going to do this one.
Oh, I think they're just waiting to be moved over.
We don't have a like.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, I guess yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Move it over to vetoed.
Oh, it is being moved as we speak.
It just got moved.
There we are.
This one.
Nice little change. Put water a little bit.
A whole card just for this. Awesome.
I'm sure Serena will appreciate that.
Any other potion nerfs or buffs that isn't luck? Not at the moment, no. Are there any that you think need to be nerfed or buffed? Meta, I'm telling you, it's just the fact that water has some of the best average stats in the game, dude. It's not the synergy. The synergy is fine. It's the fact that it has no negative on imbue. That's it. But after like reworking water's stats, it should be fine with that synergy.
No.
Yes. Yeah.
Please no.
Yeah, I mean, like
obviously for
fighting styles, I think need better synergy, because they all like they don't synergize with each other. So you just end up taking fucking Iron Leg for like a better like
focus. Yeah.
Focus, like
that's defense focus.
That's all you do.
Mm-hmm.
Or you take boxing because that has a block passive. You don't take any like you don't take Sailor because it has water synergies. You take it because it's fat.
Hmm. People like Warriors are forced against Sunkens instead of yeah, that's fair. Well, I think Vet is Warriors will be getting essentially an Arcanium gear equivalent in the future.
Good one.
It,
with
no,
with
no, Vet has said it.
artisan
It's
weapons.
not gonna be. It's not, yeah, it's not gonna work the same way as like Arcanium armor and all that shit. It's gonna be completely different. But the way it'll work will be interesting, from what I've heard.
I don't think it'll be interesting. I think he's just like they'll just get like some like stupid armor set that only warriors can use or something like that.
But when I say interesting, I mean different. It will not be that interesting. It'll just be like another stat armor. But yeah, you know.
How is the tier rework going to work for second fighting style and magic? Ask him about that because
It's just
that's
a
not
mod. It's
a.
very nice. Yeah, I think it's actually on the Trello. Vet described the tier difference. Actually, I'm gonna check this just in case. I'm like 99% sure it's just on the Trello, by the way.
Can I see how long the stage has been up for?
A while.
I think the uptime's been like 40 minutes so far.
Okay, I don't know where the tier change was. This might take me a minute to find.
Is it possible to nerf Lightning's power on Arcanium in exchange for more agility? Maybe. I don't know. But, I mean, it's possible.
Made it art.
Oh, here we go. Increase the base tiers of second magic and second fighting styles. Okay, just a slightly higher. It's a good amount. Yeah. But as he described it, it says there aren't super far behind your first slot. As
Tiers.
in
Okay.
fighting style.
Pringles can. Tiers are basically when you put stat points into a stat, right? Not like your armor stat points, but like your character stat points, your magic, your vitality, your weapons, your strength, right? When you put points in those, it increases the size and clash power of all of the skills of that type. So, for example, if I put 50 points into speed, if I put 50 points into my strength, right, it'll increase all of the size and clash power of all of my strength skills. Okay? That's what a tier is. A tier is when you get past a specific point, you end up going into the next tier. It's linear, so you get linear increased size and clash power, but it's the tier scaling is what it's called. Okay? Higher like the second magic and the second fighting style have lower tiers and lower tier scaling than first fighting style and first magic because of those, and they end up with just much lower size and clash power to the point where they're almost unusable relative to first magic and first fighting style.
Currently. Next update, they will be so much better. Oh my god. Yeah, also like Meta just said, there are visual indicators for your tier. Like if you look
Right.
at Flying Phoenix, for example, like tier 1, it just kind of looks like a spinny blob, but then when you get to a higher tier, it actually has like a bird or a phoenix shape that moves with the projectile.
Metal iron leg, the slowest combination possible. No, you do metal imbued lance of loyalty with dense. Or I mean, like technically you could do that as a savant at some point because you can do metal imbued on lance of loyalty. Oh, is it? Iron leg imbue is slower than metal imbue right now? Maybe. Possible. Yeah, leg imbue is worse than metal.